the US. The world is very global now. And some people don't believe in it, people like our president, and they think we should just put big walls up and stop it, but ultimately that's not going to change. The market is really spoken. And with 3D printing, that's going to, and the ability of technology to change that globalization again, it's going to get even worse or even more exciting. Mother Nature. Now, I personally believe in man-made climate change. Some people don't. But ultimately, immaterial of that, the population mass is growing. I was in India recently, speaking at Scrum Day India, and they have 1.3 billion people. The reason why I know that is because they're always on the road when you're trying to get anywhere from A to B, and you can never get anywhere because there's thousands of, well, millions, billions of Indians running around doing Scrum and the like. Actually, they are. They single-handedly cost my entire support organization. But anyway, but the world population growth, and now Africa is growing massively. Population, you know, we're working with Ghana and the police force in Ghana, and it's really interesting because they've got an incredibly young population, but they have no work. There's some very interesting dynamics because of that. And then the climate is obviously changing. In the US, we're seeing it with multiple hurricanes, you know, which is, you know, the fact that insurance now on houses that is near the water is almost impossible to get. You know, the climate is changing. Excuse me. And then the last one, which everybody's very familiar with, which, you know, has been Moore's Law, but it's more than Moore's Law. It's the, you know, the use of the cloud. The fact that computing is so ridiculously cheap now in comparison to what it was. And it's growing, almost doubling in terms of processing and halving in terms of cost every single 18 months. And that's just incredible. It means that you can now sequence a genome in, what, days rather than years. It'll be hours and minutes, and then next thing you know, your doctor will be able to sequence your genome while sitting next to you, which is incredibly powerful stuff and incredibly valuable. And it's this coming together of these different S-curves of innovation, S-curves of exponential growth, is changing the world. We're at an incredible time, an incredible opportunity, an incredible change that's happening, maybe more so than even the Industrial Revolution. This has huge cultural, socio-political, and environmental potential changes, which is very, very, very exciting. And that's why Jeff Moore calls it, that's the reason why Thomas Friedman calls it entering the supernova. He calls it this, like, all these pressures are coming together and it's going to go boom, and it's going to fundamentally change the world. And that could end in a massive global war, or it could end, which we don't want, or it could more likely end in vast changes in everything that we see today in front of us. Wow. The world is changing. So, how do you deal with change? How do you deal with change? Can we look to a system that is well known, been around for billions of years, that helps us understand change? Can we look at maybe Mother Nature? She's a very changeable character. She's always dedicatedly following fashions. She sort of goes with it, and you know, had this whole dinosaur thing, which was very popular for a while. Decided that didn't work. Moved to mammals. You know, seems to be thinking that might not work either. Maybe there's silicon is going to be the next, if you believe the singularity, it's going to be the next thing. How does she deal with it? Well, these are some of the characteristics of Mother Nature that maybe we can start thinking about as we start applying these ideas to drive us to a way of building organizations, social systems, teams, processes that can respond to change in the most effective way. Find your niche and focus on it. Maniacal focus, and I think it's really what we heard earlier about those 10 things. Find something you're passionate, find it, focus on it. Be paranoid. Every single retrospective, every single sprint review, be paranoid. Like, why did this work? Why didn't this work? Why didn't Bob come in? Why did support not provide those services? What is the customer started using that? Why did they use it? Why didn't they use it? Be very paranoid. Mother Nature is ridiculously paranoid. You know, the fact is that, you know, she's always like, oh, could go this way, could go that. Mutate. Or experiments, perhaps the best way of describing this. Continuously experiment. diversity is crucial. Diversity isn't just a trendy thing. The bottom line is having a team that's diverse, that has diverse in terms of skills, diverse in terms of experience, diverse in terms of social outlook, diverse in terms of gender, orientation. All of those things are fantastic because they give you different ideas, because they approach things differently. If your team is just a carbon copy of you, then you will not be successful, ultimately. Diversity is a good thing. Again, our current president doesn't agree with that. But the idea is that if you can have a diverse environment, then you can respond to situations better. Situations where, maybe somebody's seen it before on the team. Exploit networks. Look for support. Now, networks are very, very important. Spotify obviously have formalized that in their tribe model, but there's other ways. Community of practices are growing in importance. The idea of having a support network around you is incredibly valuable. And spending time investing it. Now, you're in a room today of a bunch of geezers and geezerettes that like Scrum. Some of them are in different points in their experience in Scrum. This is a great network to start getting as part of your journey and using in the future. Get a few email addresses or tweet handles or whatever, Twitter handles. And then be able to help people. I mean, I know the reason why I have my job is because of this. About 20 years ago, I was introduced to Ken Schwaber. I was the RUP product manager. And I know, that's embarrassing to say, isn't it? And I was introduced to this completely insane man who wanted to completely disrupt my business. And I was very arrogant and told him that I had lots of customers and he had none. And you can see how well that went. But we stayed in talking. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford Ken, and I used Jeff to do some training at a client because Ken was too expensive. And that's when I met Jeff, and then the rest is history. Networks. It really, really does help. And balance. This idea of you're always trying to, in a project, you're always trying to deliver technical debt, you're always trying to deliver some new features, you're always trying to get rid of some defects, you're always trying to improve the process. You need to balance all of those things. This is very important. And then this balancing of long-term and short-term. And this is a real challenge. If you ever want to listen to something that's amusing, listen to the earnings calls for Tesla. So, because there's a bunch of old school money people from JP Morgan and all these Barclays Capital and all these different market managers. So they're fund managers, money managers. And then there's Elon Musk. And you hear a massive difference. Basically the capital guys are saying, well, if we inject more capital into your business, what return would it give? That's what they say over and over again in many different ways. And Elon going, it doesn't work like that. What happens is we're at a point where we're learning about this Model 3, the new Tesla. We're trying to get to 5,000 units a week. To do that, a lot of things are going wrong. We're breaking the system over and over again. I can't predict when the system will work. And you see this sort of like short, long-term kind of friction. It's really interesting. I recommend it. Or just look at the transcript from the calls. They're really, really interesting. Mother Nature is always balancing those two needs. So if we can take Mother Nature and use her as a teacher, we can use her as part of our network to try to understand the world. How are businesses doing against that? Well, this is a very worrying trend, particularly if you work for a large, older type company. But ultimately what we're seeing is that organizations that historically have been incredibly stable are not. Now this is a piece of data that really illustrates the fact that every large organization is having some challenges at the moment. Now, it's interesting, one of the poster childs of change is GE, right? And Jeff Immert did a really good job taking lean startup and agile thinking and bringing that to his organization. But because of a certain investor, he was pushed out because he wasn't delivering the return that you would expect. So I'm not sure whether the current markets and the current way capital is allocated actually allows organizations to really become more organic and more agile? I don't know. The jury's still out. Other than Google and some of the those type organizations, it's hard to see. But this is very worrying, and it's no surprise. It's no surprise that the environments that you're working in today are incredibly challenging to do Scrum and to do Agile. I mean, look at what it's designed for. Efficient. I don't know about you, but many companies I've worked for in the past, particularly when I was working for IBM, cost was more important than value. Why? Because it's easier to manage cost, right? You can manage cost. It's physical. It's there. It's like, I want to go on this course. I want to do this. I want to get my team and have a dinner. Well, that sounds expensive. It's all about money. So it's very easy to manage that. Very hard to say, hey, if I get this team together, we're going to work better together and deliver this much more value. Really? Are you? Are you sure? Thoughtful. People don't like making decisions. They really don't. They pretend they do, but they really don't. They have lots of meetings, conference call after conference call, and always the person that you need isn't there anyway, but you have these multiple conference calls. Because group decision making is, well, it's democratic, isn't it? No, it's avoiding making decisions. Hierarchical. Everything goes up and down in a sort of comedy of errors. I'm accountable but not responsible. You're responsible but not accountable. We end up with these very hierarchical sort of like disconnects. And short term. Everybody cares about short term. There's a survey that happens every year by McKinsey, and they ask a very interesting question. What's more important, short or long term? And everybody always says short term. That point about short-term profits, short-term returns is everything. That is very challenging for an agile organization because all of these things are almost counter to what agility is all about. Efficient? Well, yeah, we are about efficiency, but only in the context of, I don't mind if we're inefficient as long as we're learning and getting feedback and delivering value. Thoughtful. Well, actually, yeah, we care about the team. The team is ultimately making decisions and the like, but not everybody. It's the product owner makes decisions about what is ultimately the most valuable. The team then delivers that, makes decisions about, but we're always about delivering. Hierarchical, no, we're incredibly flat. Short term, yeah, we deliver in every sprint. We deliver continuously. We talk every day in a daily, but ultimately, we care about the long and the short term, that balance. You know, most organizations think that, well, you know, this is the way it's been, so magic's going to happen, we're going to be all right. I'm not sure that's the case. And, you know, this is a Peter Drucker quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. It doesn't matter if we say we're going to be agile. It doesn't matter if we even have lots of plans around being agile. If the culture of our organization is built around traditional industrial paradigms, if the culture is built around those principles that we talked about earlier, then it ain't going to work. And I think that we basically are saying this. Culture eats agile for breakfast every day, and it does. It does. Your life is hard. You're trying to do something very different to the organizations that you're working in. And it's okay, because you live in Germany and beer is good. No, it's okay. We've just legalized marijuana in Boston, so it's brilliant. Actually, I don't care if it's okay or not. That's the bottom line. No. But the point is that this isn't going to help you stop drinking. It isn't going to help you stop drinking lots of coffee. It's not going to help you be unstressed. It's funny. Scrum is actually going to make your life harder, not easier. It's going to make it better, but it is going to make it harder. And maybe you're seeing this every day. So let's talk about, okay, so we're going to do Scrum. We're going to scale Agile across the enterprise now because we want to respond to the supernova. So we take heed from, I believe this is Napoleon or some such chap. Yeah, it looks like a very interesting horse, isn't it? Anyway, so we're going to take the hill. We're going to do Agile. It's going to be brilliant. Starts innocently enough. Yeah, we're going to do Agile. Executive comes in, that Agile is the only way to build the supernova. A decree is announced, everybody will be Agile. Does this happen to anybody in their organization? Great, we love those. It's a brilliant way of making lots of money if you're a trainer. But but there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, just for all the training organizations in the room. Hang on a minute, isn't this ironic? Adopting Agile using a non-Agile approach. Ultimately, what we've decided probably is a top-down, waterfall kind of way of adopting Agile. We're going to start, we're going to do Agile, we're going to build up, and yes, you could argue it's going to be water-scrum-fall. You know, the planning is going to be done in a waterfall way, and then we're going to do Agile in a very Agile way, because that's cool, and then we're going to release it sort of incrementally maybe. So maybe it's just water scrum, I don't know. We'll see, but most organizations are adopting Agile in a very un-Agile way. Why? Because they don't want to hear that it's hard. They don't want to hear it's not. The last thing they want to do is actually get that feedback that they're having these issues. The last thing they want to do is stop, inspect, adapt, and change. The last thing they want to do is step back and say, hey, maybe Agile's not right, because how can it not be? And that's the other thing. And what we find over and over again, people don't resist change, they resist being changed. So ultimately, this whole like enterprise adoption of Agile doesn't necessarily work. And that's not surprising, as we talked about earlier, because traditional organizations are not built for this. So this waterfall model, Agile is by its very nature, an organization by its very nature is a complex problem, right? That means we have to use an empirical approach. That means we have to use lean and empiricism to effectively manage it. So, the plan kind of model. They want to start with a plan. We're going to start their Agile transformation. We want military precision. How many people are trained? How many teams are going to be Agile by the end of Q1? How many teams are going to be Agile by Q3? The great way to undermine all of this is to say, what defines Agile to you? And then you'll get into one of these very philosophical conversations. You should come to Massachusetts where marijuana is free, and then it's a really good conversation. And then you end up with this sort of really sort of bizarre thing. We want number of people, number of teams, number of coaches. We want to get X number of coaches. We want number of product owners, all marching towards this common adopting Agile goal with regular milestones along the way, which measure progress. We've got 20% of our organization trained in Agile, 40% of our organization trained in Agile, and we are on plan. That's what it's all about. What could possibly go wrong with that? This is all going to be super, super successful. Well, no. Actually, it's not. We see everybody say, oh, well, Scrum's failed. We're going to do Kanban now. Kanban's failed. Safe is the answer. Oh, no, Safe was a disaster. We're going to do less. But they do it in the same sort of way. Now it's all DevOps. Let's step back. This is going to be a challenging concept, but let's, and considering what I do for a living, this is really embarrassing to admit. How about we don't focus on Agile? That's crazy talk. Westy, what are you on about? I don't know. It might be the combination of jet lag and braces. I'm not sure what's going on. But let's focus on why we're doing Agile, okay? So we're stepping back. All right, why are we doing Agile? Well, we want to be more responsive. Why do you want to be more responsive? Because the market is more responsive. Why is the market being more responsive? Because your customers keep changing their pesky minds. So ultimately, at the heart of this is the customer. I would argue that the customer, now that customer may be a direct customer, somebody buying a product. It might be a customer that's internal, somebody using a service that you provide. It might be another department that then takes that service, repackages it, and delivers it to somebody else. But ultimately, the reason why you need to be Agile is because of a customer. So we're changing not just in terms of adopting a Scrum-type approach, but we're also changing because we have to become more customer-centric. There's a lot of C's and S's in that. More customer-centric. So historically, customers have been, yeah, we're brilliant apart from the customers are a pain. Now we have to reverse everything. The reason why Amazon is kicking ass is not because of their electronic website. It's not because they've got a cool name, which is just a weird name. It's not because they're a unicorn or were a unicorn. Ultimately, it's because the customer is at the heart. It's funny. I really try not to buy Amazon. I buy loads of stuff on Amazon, but I continually try. And recently, I bought 2 new washing machines. And I decided to go to Sears. Because Sears is an institution, and I love it. And you go in, and there's people that should have retired 40 years ago talking to you about washing machines Or TVs, which is hilarious. Do never do that. That's just like, no, it's an LED. No, liquid light emitting diode. You get into these conversations, oh, well, it's a TV. Anyway, but now, not only did they have to phone me 5 times, they brought the wrong washing machines. I'm like, really, guys? Amazon. It's always seamless. It comes next day. In fact, in Boston now, we have 2-hour delivery. 2-hour delivery. I've got a child under 2, still uses diapers. Sometimes his dad does too, but depends on the day. But I can literally realize I'm out of diapers, press a button, tell Alexa now, Alexa, order me some diapers, priority. And guess what? There's a knock on the door and a little guy with diapers. Do you know how valuable that is when you've run out of diapers? Because the alternative is you have to get a kid that's got everywhere, put them in a car, drive to the supermarket. They never have the diapers you want. You then go, oh my God, can I use these instead of these? Your wife says, never use that. You always pick the wrong one. Your wife goes, why are you using those diapers? They give him a rash. You're like, oh my God, what's going on? This is so much easier. And I just watched Leicester City the entire time. It's brilliant. The point is that customer-centric is everything. Customers is what's everything. This is what we're all about. We're changing this. We're moving to this. This is the kind of, your CEO, your management, your executives, everybody, the teams, we're all supporting customers. Your job, even though you may be indirectly connected to a customer, is about supporting customers. We need to build teams around customers. And unfortunately, customers live in this complex world because customers are fickle. Customers change their mind. Customers have difference of opinions. They're continuously changing. So that's why we have to do this. We have to do this inspection and adaptation. We have to. We have to give customers stuff. How many times does Amazon release? Every day. How many times? Thousands of times. They release every few minutes. Now, most of those changes are very small. But they continuously release because they're continuously, and they do A/B testing. They do A-B-C-D-E testing. They test different markets, different things. They're continuously getting data back because they're continuously operating that route. And Scrum is designed for that. You might say, well, hang on a minute, you only release at the end of the sprint. That's what that diagram shows. It does not. One of the myths that hopefully you realize is that that is a phase gate to releasing. The best sprint reviews are done with software in production. This is a planning cycle, not a release cycle. This is about inspection and adaptation through transparency, not about releasing. Hopefully you're doing trunk-based development where you're continuously releasing. And then your sprint review is getting the stakeholders in and talking about it. How often do you get them in? How often are they willing to come in? And how often is the data valuable for them to respond to? That's the cycle. And Nexus just scales that. I'm not talking about Nexus. So there's a really good book coming out on 15th of December, written by somebody who may be standing at the front of this room. Recommend it for your Christmas list. Anyway, so I don't mind if you don't read it, just buy it. Anyway, anyway, that was a slight commercial break. We're now back. The best way of doing Agile is at the edges, like a pond. You start at the edges. You start by basically building Scrum teams that are connected to customers. Not only does that give you the ability to take advantage of the Scrum model to actually get that value from inspection and adaptation, but it also gives you the credibility and the power to do change. Because when a customer's involved, people are more likely to say, okay, start at the edge. Start building out Agile teams from the edges. And then, as these teams need more services, capabilities, things from other teams, those teams start becoming more agile. Because the best way to respond to these very unpredictable, customer-driven teams is to become more agile themselves. And it just starts exploding, but from the edges. From the edges. This was a very good build when I created it. I'm getting a bit bored by it now. And that means you end up with an organization that looks a bit like this, We talked a little bit about Studio last year for the people that were here, about this idea of a sort of encapsulated, separate kind of model. But ultimately, these are Scrum teams connected into the traditional organization. And that means you have to protect them. That means you have to, if you're a leader or if you're a Scrum Master or if you're involved in any way in helping these teams be successful, maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a consultant, your job is to protect this team from the challenges of that traditional organization, from that thing on the left. Your job is to provide an environment that allows them to grow, to deliver on their needs, their customer, to deliver continuously against the customer. Your job is to lead them by creating an environment where they can be successful. The best leaders ultimately are the ones that allow those teams to be successful. And that's really hard. I'm awful at this because I'm all about me, as you can tell. But I'm trying so hard to talk about my team and yes. But the idea is that you create this environment. You allow your teams to be self-organizing. And there's some interesting points around self-organization. Opt-in, self-direction, this idea of Dan Pink's autonomy, mastery, purpose. These concepts that you're building environments that allow teams to really thrive. Of course, within the guardrails of the organization, within the guardrails of the vision for what the product needs to be and the ultimate ideas around it, but it's all about the teams. And you support them with leadership services, engineering services, measurement services, shared services that, like DBA, security, those things. Now, the question is, what do these services look like? It depends on your environment. Some things will be inside the team, some things will not be inside the team. Some things will be a shared service, some things won't be. It depends on your needs. But you learn every sprint. Every retrospective, you realize that there's a problem. Or there's not. Every retrospective, because you're paranoid and you say, hey, did you get enough DBA time? Well, no, I didn't. Well, maybe we should bring the DBA in for a couple of sprints. Hey, that would be really great. We can knock out all of these really high priority stories. Hey, or maybe we need that ops guy to be involved. What about security? Oh, they've been a real pain because they're a shared service. Well, let's get access to security. How do we do that? Well, they won't come here. Let's get them drunk, throw them in a van, and throw them into the team. Brilliant. That's a brilliant idea. That might not be recommended. I don't know. It depends on you. Security probably have all sorts of special things where if you do that, a buzzer goes off or something. These guys. So this model, and this is what makes Agile at scale hard. None of these things are prescriptive. I can't say whether there's always a shared DBA service because it depends on your situation. That's the reason why things like SAFe are so challenging. I'm not dissing SAFe, but they're so challenging because they try to provide a methodology. Scrum is not a methodology. A process will emerge from Scrum. And Agile isn't a methodology. It emerges. And the reason why Spotify might not work for you is because it's designed for them. Good ideas, definitely look at it, but everything's different. And the other thing that's important is around this idea of communities of practice. Something incredibly valuable is your network. Mother Nature taught us this. Your network needs to help you. So start building out some real active communities of practice. Maybe security isn't a shared service. Maybe it's a community of practice with some full-time people in it that help other people do security. Maybe you can start really thinking about community in your own organization. And that's something that Spotify have done really, really, really well. And that's something we can look at, whether you call them tribes, whether you call them guilds, I don't care what you call them, but I want to be part of something. And I want help that's outside of my team because my team doesn't have all that skills. So start looking at your communities of practice. How do you know you've won? Well, you know because you're still in existence. You know that because you're delivering value. You know your customers are happy. But maybe things like external measures are great. This is EBM, but I don't really care what you use as long as you think about measuring your current value, how fast and frequently you're learning, and how quickly you are able to innovate. Have you got large amounts of technical debt that's stopping you to innovate? Are you being able to deliver frequently? And are you delivering enough to pay the bills today? What is the current value of the stuff you're doing? If you can get these things in place, then you're sorted. You can know that you're being successful and making sure your team's going in the right direction. So, now, I just want to finish, because I'm sure you've heard enough of me, and also, it's early for me, so I'm probably worn out by now, but let's build a natural system in your organization. Let's respond to change, and let's deliver value to our customers. Let's respond to the market and the environment our customers need us to be. Find parts of your organization that's ready to change. Let's look at the customer as a real barometer of that. Recruit people that want to be part of that change. Help them change by protecting and supporting them. Remove any friction from those teams via good leadership that creates the services and the environments around them for them to succeed. Use the power of communities and peer networks to help these people get better. Some of those networks will be inside the organization, some of them will be outside. And then focus on evidence that you get to drive that success. So these are some very straightforward ideas around enterprise scaling, some very straightforward ideas for how to deal with this environment of change that we're in. So it's not about transformation. It's about being transformed. It's not about building a plan around agile transformation. It's about creating an environment to allow us to be transformed. Because ultimately, I think that's what you need. And this is me and my boy George. He's 4. And as you can see, we're wearing our Leicester City shirts. Greatest football team in the world. Go Foxes! Because you can, in an environment that is chaotic and complex, with a team of people that aren't necessarily the best people that you can in the world. They're not the greatest developers, they're not the greatest DBAs. You can win, and you can be incredibly successful, and you can go from goodness to great, or greatness to good, or whatever. You can fundamentally deliver fantastic value and have fun doing it. You can't argue with Leicester City having fun. If you have anybody's, you're bored, there's a video of when they won the Premier League, when Tottenham they were 3 goals up and then ended up drawing 3-3, which I have no idea how that happened, by the way. And they were at Vardy's house, who's a striker, who was playing non-league football 4 years ago. I guess 5 now. And you see how much fun they're having as a team. That's when you really know Scrum's working. That's when you know you're surviving against that environment. And maybe I'm a little too Leicester-centric, but hopefully you've taken some words of wisdom from here. That's what I wanted to share with you. We've come to our time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. I'm not sure how I'm going to get it back on the plane. But.
Well, it's alcohol and you're English, so I think you will know how to do it. Thank you. So, we'll have a break until 10:15.